Hi everyone, my name is Cindy Rayfield. I'm with Franchise Matchmakers, and today we're going to discuss the topic of 7 reasons why veterans invest in franchises over starting their own business. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, but before we do that, I want to start with the problem that many veterans face. When they're coming out of the military, they're transitioning out, and it could be that there's many factors or many options available to them, one of which is a job, one of them which may be starting a business. There's a whole bunch of different things. But let's talk about a deeper problem that starts before those two options. How do you know what's going to be next for you? If you're considering a job, will you find a good job or will you have to settle? It's very likely that you may have to settle for something first, and there's nothing wrong with that because coming out of the military into the civilian workplace, it's an adjustment period. So there's nothing wrong with having to settle, but knowing that you may have to do that. Will it be what you want to do? Probably not if you're finding a job. It's just a fact of life. You're probably not going to find exactly what you want. Will it give you the future that you want? It's a big one to think about. Will it give you the freedom and flexibility you desire? Very rarely do people think about this. This is a big one, and it's not until somebody is in a job that they realize that maybe they don't have that freedom and flexibility that they didn't realize was important until they're in it. And they can't get away. They can't go to children's plays or sporting events or spend time with the family, anything like that. Can you invest in yourself with just another job? Is a job guaranteed? Have you ever considered owning instead of renting? And I want you to think about this. Everybody says, oh, it's a good thing to own a home and not rent an apartment because your money's just going down the drain. And again, I'm not talking about, when we're talking about the bigger picture here, it's not just talking about a house, but a house is a great example for you. If you decide to buy a house, you're building equity in your home. If you're paying rent, you're just paying rent every month, and that rent just goes away. You're not building any equity in it. You're not owning anything at the end. It's like a job. In a job, you don't own it. You don't own the job at the end. They can let you go at any time, and all that work and all that time you put into it means absolutely nothing to you. So people don't usually think about a job that way, but I want you to start thinking about that because it is a problem. It is a big problem for many people who want more than just a job. All right. So moving along, this is where we're going to start. I want you to keep this in mind as we go through each of these slides. Let me tell you about me. My name is Cindy Rayfield. I'm an international franchise broker. When people ask what a franchise broker does, it's sort of like a real estate broker. I represent about 500 different franchise concepts, and I find good candidates who want to invest in those. So it's sort of like having a real estate agent with an inventory of houses, and they're looking for the right buyer for these houses. That's what I do with franchises. It's pretty fun. I'm a multi-unit franchisee in the hair care industry. Multi-unit means that I own more than one. I own 2 locations of a hair care salon called Cookie Cutters Haircuts for Kids in the Denver metropolitan area. I've owned them now for about 3 years. I do have about 12 years in the franchise consulting industry, franchise brokerage industry. What I love about what I do is I have access to a whole lot of different franchises at my fingertips that I'm able to share with other people. So I get to learn about a lot of different industries. I've got 12 years experience showing hundreds of people the freedom lifestyle of business ownership through franchise investing, and I love what I do. Excuse me. I've got 25 years in small business in general. I've owned a variety of different businesses, including startups as well as franchises. I have been a marketing manager for a major corporation. I've been in the banking industry, cable television industry. I've got a varied background. I have owned franchises in magazine publishing as well as the consulting industry on top of what I'm doing now in the hair care industry. So I've got a strong background in franchises in particular, but also a 25 years experience as a business owner. The reason I got into business ownership is some of the pain that I felt on the slide before this, where we were talking about the problems with having a job. I had my 3rd child. I was spending more money in daycare than I was in what I was making. It was demanding. I couldn't leave when I needed to go take care of my children. If I wanted to leave at 5 o'clock because I had to go pick my kids up, somebody would invariably call a 4:30 meeting, and I was expected to be there, and it didn't matter that I had children to pick up from daycare. Didn't matter to them. So I kind of got tired of that. And I said, yeah, that makes me a terrible employee, actually, when you think about it. I'm not going to stick around after they tell me that they need me. I've got things to do, I've got my own life. I didn't like people telling me what to do. And that kind of made me itchy. Like I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to keep doing that. So that's why I started my own business. That's when I started my own marketing company, building websites for small businesses, churches, and nonprofits. And that allowed me to do that from my home while I was taking care of my children. I could do it in the evening, granted me freedom and flexibility. If I needed to go meet a client, I would arrange for somebody to come in and watch my children or take them to daycare for a set period of time that would allow me to do that. So it was a great start. But what really got me into franchising was a franchise consulting agency actually hired me locally to do some of their marketing for them. Um, and I ended up being an employee of hers. I actually joined her organization to do marketing for her. So I had a couple of years of experience in franchising before I even made the plunge into franchise consulting. And that's really what got me started in this whole world of franchising. I learned so much that I didn't know about the franchise industry, and a lot of the misunderstandings about it and the myths that people say about franchising, I found out were simply not true. It's really what is a good fit for people. And that's what I learned by having that job first and then developing into being my own boss through being a franchise broker slash consultant. And I said here at the bottom, so that's made me a franchise expert, which is really great. But I did have a job one time, just like the rest of you. I had the corporate American job, told you my story, told you my problems, and I found business ownership to be a better solution for me. So let me tell you what a franchise broker does. What I do, my company name is FranchiseMatchmakers.com. What we do at FranchiseMatchmakers.com is we match people who want to be in business with a franchise that meets their needs. So it's all about fit. A lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, I want to buy a McDonald's. No, you don't. And it's not a fit for you. And here's why. So I help people understand what their fit is. I recruit franchise companies. I'm a recruiter for franchise companies. So I have this list of about 500 different franchises that any one of them could be a good fit for various people. It's not a one size fits all type of scenario. So I'm really skilled at recruiting the right candidates for the right franchises. And then good news is at the bottom here, my services are 100% free to the people looking to invest in franchises because the franchisors pay me a referral fee to find somebody to fit their franchise concept. So it's actually a really good win for all of us. It doesn't cost you, the client, anything to dream a little bit, find something that might fit you. You don't have to buy it. It's a process to go through and decide if it makes a good sense for you to invest. But then the franchisor has a chance to vet you as well and make sure that they're getting a good fit. And then they pay me for that, which is nice because those franchisors can't be in all places at all times to find the candidates. That's my job, and they pay me for that. So it's kind of how it works. People don't know that. There's a lot of people that don't even realize there's people like me out here. This is actually an industry that's been around for 4 decades, helping people find franchises, but you don't know if you've just never been introduced to the concept. So here's why people choose business ownership. This is why people look for business ownership, franchise ownership in particular, and veterans in particular are really suited toward franchise ownership. So let me tell you why. First of all, at the top here, everybody's looking for success. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's a job or starting a business, at the end of the day, everybody wants to be successful. So we know that there's no human being out there that says, I want to do something and I don't want to be successful at it, but I definitely want to give it a try. Everybody wants to find success. And along with that, and the layer lower, there's fulfillment, flexibility, and independence. Now, a lot of people don't know that these things are driving what they view as success. I know that because when people sit across the desk from me and they tell me what their problems have been with their past job, fulfillment, flexibility, and independence always come up. Money's important, but money isn't always the most important thing. It's these other three things first. And people don't know it until they start talking about it and they start listing out all of the reasons why they would do this. Fulfillment, flexibility, independence. Okay, that's going to be important. I want you to keep those three things in mind as we go through this slideshow. And especially for vets who've been told what to do in the military for sometimes 2, 3 decades themselves, they don't even realize that these are things that are going to be available to them. It wasn't available to them in the military, but now if they're going to transition out and be in civilian life, these things need to rise to the top for them. And they don't realize that until they start talking to me. A layer below that is control, financial capabilities, no more layoffs and money. Those things are almost like symptoms of a deeper problem. Okay, but these things are important too. They contribute. Vets may not realize this, but if there's executives out in the world, chief executive officers, chief financial officers, chief operating officers, COOs, CEOs, those types of people, they typically keep a job for 18 months before they're laid off. That's just corporate America. They don't stay in jobs very long. They're employees for 18 months. They get a package to leave, and then they go to the next job. And the problem in their life is it could be 2 years between jobs before they find the right job. It's not a matter of just taking another job or accepting the next best thing that comes. They have to spend some time to find the right one, and sometimes that takes a couple of years. So they get tired of that. So I work with a lot of senior level executives that simply get tired of layoffs. So that's going to be important too. And in the military, you might not realize that this is a factor for people in the civilian world, but the higher you get up, the higher you are in a job, and the longer you have it, the more likely you are to lose it. So I bring those issues to life for people. They don't even think about that until they go, oh my gosh, I'm 6 months away from losing my job. Maybe you are. Why don't you think about something that is going to give you some more security, that you don't have to worry about layoffs anymore? And money is always important. That building wealth and having an income at the same time, you can do that with a job. It's very difficult to do with a 401k or an IRA. You're just adding money to it, but it doesn't give you an income and it doesn't build equity very fast. It takes time. So I want you to think about these things too. What is going to be right for you as you transition out of the military into a civilian job? So now, close your eyes, put on your thinking cap for a minute. I want you to imagine you're the owner of a successful business. How is your life going to be better? Would you get rid of your career pain to achieve career goals? All right. And I want you to think about career goals differently. This is not about just getting another job, but really, if you had to paint a picture of what it's going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, are you working for someone else? Is that what it looks like for you? Or are you setting your own terms, creating your own future for yourself, creating your own job, essentially, through business ownership, something that you can control, gives you flexibility, builds equity, gives you the income that you desire. Now, again, it's not an overnight success, but when you're investing in a franchise, you're investing in yourself and your future. Unlike a job where you could lose it at any time, rent versus own, there's a difference. Here's the future reality. You've played by the rules in the military, but the rules are changing. And whenever I ask this question at a job seminar or sharing information about transitioning out of the military into the job, I ask the question, who in here is looking for job security? Everybody's hand goes up. Everybody. Of course, we're all looking for job security when we leave the military. But I want you to think something differently. What you're really looking for is income security, not job security. There is no such thing as job security. The job can go away at any time. But if you can secure your income, suddenly you're thinking differently about what it is that you want to do. Knowing that income goes away when a job goes away, if you want to secure your income, you have to think differently. You just haven't thought about it this way before. You've always thought about just having a secure job. No, you need to be thinking about securing your income. So let's talk about why business ownership plays into that. We're going to talk about these reasons. I'm going to give you some food for thought as we go through this seminar. First, we're going to examine what a franchise is. We're going to talk about the 7 reasons why a vet would go into a franchise versus starting a business on their own or going back to a job. We're going to talk about the difference in business ownership types. There are different types of business ownership. Franchise is one of them. We're going to talk about all of those. Again, franchising specifically, and then at the end, how we find one, how you go about finding a franchise that fits you. All right, on to the next slide. Let's talk about what a franchise is. What a franchise is a relationship between a franchisor and a franchisee. The franchisor is the one that owns the franchise. That's the home office, the headquarters, whatever you call it. And they have several franchisees, sometimes several, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of franchisees that operate within their parameters beneath the franchisor. What the franchisor brings to the table is a brand, a name, and trademarks. They bring their products and services to the franchise system. They bring systems and support. They have everything written down. They have the process, how you do it, how you get clients, how you do your marketing, the products that you sell, how you operate, how you explain that to people. All of those things are systematized, and they're put in one big SOP. SOP, you guys probably know from the military world, standard operating procedures. They bring that to the table for franchisees. What franchisees bring to the table is a desire to follow a brand and build a business. They want to be business owners. They want to own this. They bring that desire with them. They bring the money. They bring the money to buy into the system with a franchise fee, and then they're willing to pay the franchisor a percentage to continue to train and support and offer those systems to support them. They bring a desire also to follow a system. If that system means that you're going to expand into multiple territories, if that means you're willing to follow the procedures, you're willing to train your employees that way, you're willing to get your customers and your clients used to the way you do business, you bring that desire to follow the system. This is why military people are sought after as franchisees, because you guys know how to execute systems. So a franchise is the creation of a distribution channel to build brand identity and attain market dominance quickly. It's a very interesting way of saying it's sort of like a chain, but not every chain is a franchise. You start at the top here with the franchise headquarters. You have the franchise operators, the franchisees that ultimately bring this standard system of doing business to the customers or the clients. And I do need to make this point here. Not every chain is a franchise. I said this before, that people assume that Starbucks is a franchise or In-N-Out Burger is a franchise. Not every chain that you think of out there is actually a franchise. There's definitely some differences. Starbucks is corporate owned. All of those individual locations are owned by the corporate store. It's not owned by an individual owner. Similar to In-N-Out Burger. I get people that ask me all the time, oh, I want to own an In-N-Out Burger. You can't, because it's family owned and operated. There are no individual owners in that. So it is different from franchise ownership. So I like working with vets. I speak at the Air Force Academy. I speak at various Air Force bases. I do these seminars with people who are veterans. I like working with vets because veterans possess skill sets to be great franchise owners. Here's why. They work well in a team. They've had to learn how to do that in their years in the military. They're good leaders. They know how to take charge. They know how to step up to the plate. They've been trained on how to do that. They have a strong work ethic. Again, the military doesn't let you slack. You have to have a strong work ethic. You have expectations. You have to get this job done. Franchises are a perfect fit for that. People in the military are able to execute a plan. They are good at execution. And that's what a franchisor brings to the table. A plan of action that they want people to be able to execute. And people don't always know this, but 1 in 7 franchises is owned by a vet or are owned by veterans. So keep in mind that veterans have a really strong presence in franchising. In fact, when I show a franchise to a vet, a lot of times the franchise themselves already has veterans in the system, and those vets are able to talk to those vets to really get a good perspective of how it worked for them. Let's talk about the 7 reasons why vets would be good in a franchise versus starting their own business. What are the 7 reasons? Number 1, it's because of the system. When you invest in a franchise, you invest in a system. There's documented, well-written processes that are easy to follow. Actions already in place to be able to do that. There's something already there prepared for you to follow. The way they do business, that's what's documented in this process. How you get clients, how you do your accounting, how you do your operations, how you do your marketing, how you make your purchases, how to work with vendors, how to do your sales, etc. All of that is outlined for you. It's a part of the system. Vets thrive in systems-driven organizations. They know how to execute. So franchising fact, in franchising, it's truly all about the business systems. What people are buying when they're buying a franchise, it's not when you buy a McDonald's, you're buying the hamburgers. What you're buying when you buy a McDonald's is the entire system. You can go out and make a really great hamburger on your own. You don't have to buy McDonald's to get great hamburgers. That's not why you're buying a McDonald's. What you're buying is the back-end system. You're buying the idea that's in somebody's head that you're then able to execute. So marketing, sales, operations, accounting. Think about a franchise differently. Think about business ownership differently. It's not the end product that you're buying. It's all the back end stuff that makes it different, unique, cool, and successful. So keep that in mind. Reason number 2, predictability. Franchises are predictable. It's a proven system with predictable results because they have everything documented, because they have a system, because they have other franchisees doing it. And it can work across the country, or it can work even across the world. If it works in Dallas, it should work in San Diego, or it should work in Denver. There might be some unique nuances about your marketplace, but they're not overcomable, or they're not deal breakers. You can actually work within the system and still operate within a marketplace and have predictable results based on what other people are doing in other marketplaces. Predictability in a franchise minimizes the risk. Now, you're never going to hear me say that a franchise is risk-free, because business ownership is risk for reward at the end of the day. But the predictability of the model helps to minimize the risk of a franchise. Franchisees can compare and make adjustments to match the results that they want to get. So again, if somebody in Denver is just knocking it out of the park, you're able to talk with them and find out what it is that they're doing, and you can replicate that in your system. Reason number 3, the research that you're able to do with a franchise is uncertain. You just can't get it anywhere else. Using the franchise disclosure document allows you to really dig in and do your research before you make a commitment to buy a franchise. The FDD, affectionately known as a franchise disclosure document, we refer to it as the FDD, it allows you to research existing results. It allows you to do validation with other franchisees, because every franchisee who's in the system is listed in this franchise disclosure document. You can compare with other companies. So if you're researching maybe 3 different franchises, all of their FDDs are going to have similarities, but they're going to be customized to the franchise. It's a consistent document across the franchise system, across the franchise world. There's 23 bullet points in a franchise disclosure document. Every franchise disclosure document has these 23 bullet points, but every franchise customizes it for their particular industry. So you're able to compare and contrast, which is great. No other business ownership methodology allows for the extensive research that franchising offers. If you're starting a business from scratch, you don't have any of this background. You don't have this document that's going to give you every detail of this business. You have to make it up as you go. So there's no place else that has this, which is one of the reasons why people are like, yeah, I want to explore, because I can actually dig in and do some research. Reason number 4, there's others in the system. Other people are doing it. Why not you? So you get to find that out. You get to do something called validation. Now, in franchising, there's this sense of family, because there's very likely, unless it's an emerging brand, very likely there's 50 or more people across the country or across the world that are doing this franchise. 50 or more plus people that are doing this franchise. So you get a chance to feel that sense of family. You're not alone in this. Others can help you with research through something that we call validation, where you get to talk with franchisees and ask questions to find out what makes them successful, how they got to a yes, what made them decide to do it instead of just going back to finding a job. You get to ask those questions. You don't get to do that when you're doing your own startup. So it helps you to minimize your own personal risk in this. If you're able to find out from others, it's kind of like that group think thing. If they were able to get to an answer, why can't I get to the same answer? Or decide that it's not for me. I mean, that's the nice part about validation as well. Reason number 5, the support that you get in a franchise. Franchisors support their system through royalties, which means as a franchisee, I have a children's hair care concept. I pay a percentage back to the franchisor every month for their systems and support. Corporate supports me in areas such as marketing, advertising, product development, negotiated purchasing power, IT, customer acquisition. They do a lot of experimentation for me so that they can roll things out to new systems. Cookie Cutters, my salon that I own children's hair care salons called Cookie Cutters Haircuts for Kids. They just released an exclusive Cookie Cutters hair care line that I'm able to roll out into my system. So they were able to do all the research, try it out, select scents and smells that are kid approved, parent approved before they rolled it out to the system. My royalties go to cover things like that. I could never roll out my own product without spending some money of my own. So that money that I'm spending for royalties goes back to support the system so that all of the franchisees can benefit from this. And it helps me with my training. We get conferences, seminars, and webinars that happen frequently. Now, in the world of COVID, we haven't had a conference for over 2 years now. We were supposed to have one this past October, October 2020, but of course we all know what happened in 2020, which was the pandemic. So things changed up a bit, but now we're doing monthly seminars and webinars through Zoom, which allows us to stay in touch with what's going on in the world of Cookie Cutters. They can do training for us. Other franchisees conduct some training as well. So it's nice to see that. There's custom back office services and software. I have exclusive software designed just for Cookie Cutters that my royalties go to support. So if I have issues with something, I'm not alone. I'm not standing there going, oh my gosh, the computer system isn't working. Who do I call? What do I do? I have a number to call and I have somebody who is on it right away. My royalties are going to cover things like that. The support is bar none. I feel very strongly about my franchise. I'm very proud of what my franchise offers to me for my royalties. So every franchise has royalty structures. Sometimes it's more than 6%. I pay 6%. Part of that goes to specifically to marketing. But some franchises have a flat fee royalty. Some franchises have a lower royalty. Some of them have a higher royalty. But for all of those franchises, they are providing something in exchange for those royalties. And if they're not, you can hold your franchisor's feet to the fire. I'm paying you. You need to provide this support for me. So there's a way to hold your franchisor to their word. In franchising, you are in business for yourself, but you're definitely not by yourself. Okay? You're not by yourself in this world of franchising, and that's because of the royalties. And think about it this way. When a franchisee first starts out, they don't have a lot of money coming in, so they're not paying royalties to the franchisor until they start seeing activity. They start getting revenue coming in. So royalties are a percentage of your revenue. So the franchisor wants you to succeed because they make money in the long term through royalties. So the better performing you are, the more royalties you're going to pay and the more support that you're expected to get from your franchisor. So you come to rely on each other. You are not alone in franchising. Reason number 6, financing. Franchises are financeable. Franchises are financeable. I want you to remember this. Funding is available for most franchises up to 75% because of the proven system. Banks like that. Banks are not going to lend to something new and unique and never been done before. They don't do that. Now, people think this all the time. I got a great idea. I'm going to go to the bank, get somebody to finance me so I can launch this great idea. That doesn't happen. Because if it's too new, a bank will stay as far away from it as possible to minimize their risk. But franchises have this predictability factor. So banks are going to be more likely to lend to you. And there's a franchise list they can go through and they can determine, yes, we've loaned to them before, we're going to lend again. They can reference this franchise dictionary. Business startups, they are difficult to finance. It doesn't happen. But there's a lot of different ways to finance a business as well. It's not always about getting a loan from the bank. There's various ways. There's your HELOC, your home equity line of credit. Is what that stands for. Loans and retirement accounts. People dismiss the retirement account, but I'm going to tell you why in a minute, why you shouldn't do that. Even if you don't plan to use your retirement account, you need to know that there's a way that you can if the time comes. We'll talk about that in just a second. Now, I want you to keep in mind that there's no link between the size of a franchise investment and the amount of money you can make. There's no link in that. Okay. So you can get a lower cost franchise, for example, and still make a great amount of money with a good return on investment versus something that you're spending millions of dollars on. All right. I want you to take a look at this average investment range of franchises. We've got franchises that range from just under 50,000 all the way up to over 500,000 and into the multi-millions. You can see here that as you've got your disparities. You've got your high end and your low end. They have the least amount of franchise opportunities in there, but in that middle section, the 51,000 to 100,000, the 101,000 to 250,000, 250,000 to 500,000, there are a lot of franchises in there that can fit all sorts of different budgets. And I want people to remember that you don't have to invest millions of dollars to make a franchise work. In fact, some people will buy the lower cost franchises and actually buy multiples of those. So there's a lot of different ways to put a great franchise package together for you. This gets into the funding that we talked about. How much money do you need to put down? Your total investment is about 25 to 30%, which basically is going to be your franchise license fee. That's going to come out of your pocket. There is no bank that is going to finance you 100%. You're going to have to come to the table with some money, and you have to prove your lendability. So you're going to have to show your net worth. You're going to have to make sure that your net worth falls into the criteria that the franchisor is looking for. You're going to have to be able to have some liquid capital on hand to be able to at least put that 25 to 30% down. This is where I come in because I can actually show you ways to do that. The remaining 75% is financeable, or there's other ways to get funding for it. So let's look at the sources of capital available for veterans. Personal savings is always one. A lot of people are like, who has $125,000 sitting in their savings account? Not many people, but some do. Some do. Maybe if they've sold something like maybe a home or had a major investment that they sold, some people do have that money sitting in a savings account ready to invest. But of course, most people don't have it just sitting there available to them. 401k or IRA capitalization strategy, which we're going to talk about a little bit here. Home equity lines of credit, because for some people, the biggest investment is their home. And if they have a large amount of equity, some people actually utilize that to invest in a business. Lines of credit, if they have lines of credit available to them. SBA Veterans Advantage loan programs. That's the SBA stands for Small Business Administration. There are veteran programs. It doesn't mean that you don't have to qualify for those. You certainly have to qualify for those loans, but there are some that maybe have less paperwork and might be a little bit more expedited for veterans, a little bit more veteran friendly. Third-party lenders and leasing companies. Actually, many franchisors themselves partner with leasing companies to be able to help fund franchisees as they come into the system. Not a lot. I don't want people to think that every franchise does this, but some do. Friends, relatives, or partners. I really counsel people to kind of stay away from this if they can, but I've also put many people in business where they were able to partner with a parent or a sibling. Usually when I'm seeing partnerships, it's husband-wife partnerships because all the money is in one camp. Those work out really well. In situations where you're tapping into a friend or a relative or a partner, there's complications that arise. And I talk candidly about that when people start talking or going down that path. And then, of course, VetFran program discounts. Many franchisors participate. In fact, there's probably about 700 to 800 franchises that participate in the VetFran discount program, which means they offer some sort of discount to veterans, maybe money off of the franchise fee. Maybe there's a special 1 month where you don't have to pay for training. And there's all sorts of different things that they can do. If they're veteran friendly, I really try to match veterans up with veteran friendly franchises that offer some sort of incentive or discount. We'll come back to the money side here a little bit because I definitely want people to understand that there are ways to utilize retirement funds. Most people don't even think of that. I use retirement funds to fund my business completely top to bottom because I didn't want a monthly loan payment. So there's a lot of ways to do this. We'll talk about that. Number 7 reason, the 7th reason why vets do this is the semi-passive opportunity that franchising can offer. Now, semi-passive is not for everyone. Semi-passive does not mean absentee completely and you never have to be there, But it's the one franchise concept that gives you ultimate freedom and flexibility where you don't have to be at your job every day, or you don't have to be at your business every day. Hair care is typically like that. I'm not a stylist, I'm an owner. My job is to get people into the seats and to manage the employees, but I'm not there every day. I hire managers to run my locations. So that's considered a semi-passive franchise. But I never want anybody to think that semi-passive means from day one, you're never involved. That's simply not the case. But you can work into a way where you don't have to be there every day. There are some franchises that are designed specifically from the very beginning to be semi-passive. But keep in mind, you do have to put in work to make your business successful. It just depends on how much time some of these franchises are going to take. In some cases, people tell me they have a job. I had a vet that I placed into a semi-passive franchise recently. He got a job offer that he wanted to take, but he still wanted to be a business owner. We looked specifically for a semi-passive opportunity and found one that worked for him. In this model, you're working on the business, not in the business. Ideally, in any franchise, you want to get to the point where you're working on the business, not in the business, where you don't have to be there every day. You have employees that you can rely on to do that. But when you're working in that world, you are expected to hire employees. You have to, because they have to do business with you, or they have to do business in your place, basically. They become the face of the business. It allows for a second income stream. Let's go back a moment to the people who are senior level executives or chief executive officers, those people who get laid off every 18 months or who have a job for 18 months. And then there are 2 years between each franchise or each job offer. Many times I'm finding a business for those people so that when they get their next layoff, they can move straight into business ownership and have a business up and operating while they have their 18-month job stint. But when they get to the end of that time frame and they get laid off, they have a business operating and ready to go for them. So it allows for that secondary income stream that they can grow into a full-time income stream as they have their job. There's no need to work day to day in the business. The function of the owner is such that it doesn't interfere with the function of the business. Meaning, if I'm not at my salon, the salon can still open and operate because I have people there who are cutting hair. It's not me. All right? That's ideally what you want in a semi-passive business. Semi-passive, again, semi-passive. It doesn't mean completely passive. One thing I've learned through business ownership is you are going to have some sort of involvement in your business. I get people who come to me and say, I want something where I am totally absent. It's making money for me. I never have to think about it and I can keep my job. I want something totally absentee. It doesn't exist. Oh, and by the way, they want it under $50,000 and they want to start seeing a 6-figure income from that in 6 months. And believe me, if that existed, I would have already been doing it. So you have to remember that does not exist. If you want your business to be successful, you are going to have some involvement, but you can certainly look at things that don't require as much involvement as others. That's a semi-passive role. Let's talk a little bit more about the attraction of semi-absentee or semi-passive. There is going to be a higher investment in something typically that is semi-passive because you need a location, you need a manager to run it, and employees to do the work, and you have to submit advertising dollars to get people in the door. So semi-passive usually means a higher investment in most cases. Not all, but in most. Examples of that are hair care, beauty industry, fitness concepts, wellness concepts, building and construction. In those scenarios, you do not have to be there. You just have to hire the right manager and employees. You have to have a place for people to go to do the work or either buy your goods or services, and you have to be willing to spend advertising dollars to get people there. All right? There are some concepts that don't. Now, all of these things add up to the higher investment. You have to keep in mind, a lot of people forget about advertising. A lot of people think that when you go into business, you want something where you don't have to pay any advertising. That's very rarely the case. You're going to have to put some money into advertising somewhere. That contributes to your investment costs. Also, with a semi-passive or semi-absentee investment, you get to keep your job. Your owner's work is generally after hours or maybe on a lunch hour or when you can make a phone call. Technology allows for remote work. I can actually go on any time of day or night and look at my salon books and see who's booking. I can see it in real time. I can see who's booking, when, who's working, who's going to cover that. I can actually see in real time what's going on with my salon. Plus, I have cameras. I can actually tune in anytime I want to see who's working, who's selling, any situation that's happening. That is definitely something that didn't exist 25 years ago, 20 years ago, and in some cases, even 10 years ago. It's very unique to our modern world, which allows us to have that flexibility where the owner doesn't have to be there, but they can still know exactly what's going on at any point in time. The semi-passive model is a growth and investment to hedge against economic changes. An economic change might be a layoff. You can have your business up and running while you keep a job so that it's there for you when your job goes away or when the economy goes down. You can actually use that to think ahead of the game and see what might be coming down the pike that might be a good solution for somebody's problem. Because really, that's what a business offers, a solution to someone's problem. You can set it up so it's prime for resale. If you don't have to be there, you can resell this thing and make it very attractive to a new buyer. It's a retirement solution. A lot of the people that I'm working with are looking for some sort of bridge between ending a job and full retirement where they're sitting in a rocking chair on a porch somewhere and enjoying life. I would say most people that I work with don't envision that they'll ever be that one sitting in the rocking chair. They want to be active and involved. A business actually allows them to do that, so they can leave a job and have a business that operates into retirement. Many times that is their retirement strategy. That is why some people take money out of their retirement accounts and invest it into a business, because it makes for a really great addition to their retirement portfolio. And you can actually buy a business that's recession resistant. A lot of franchises are going to tell you they're recession proof or recession resistant. I never say there's anything that's recession proof, because I got to be honest with you, who would have ever seen a global pandemic happen in 2020 that makes businesses recession proof? It doesn't happen. Things can happen, things can change. So we can find things that are recession resistant and look for things that might happen or that are likely to happen down the road. You can find a business that's going to be a hedge against that. Here's some examples of some recession-resistant businesses. There are many businesses that thrive in all economic conditions. One of the things that we thought that would thrive in all economic conditions was the food industry. But now everybody needs to eat, so food is still out there. But in many places across the country in 2020, food locations had to close their dining rooms. But many of those food concepts got creative, and they beefed up their delivery or their drive-through or their pickup or their outdoor dining. So there's things that they've had to pivot on, but food at one time was considered a recession resistant to recession proof industry. That's just not the case anymore. They're subject to things as well. But here's some examples of growing markets that are driven by demographics. Senior care and services, ancillary services. So given what's going on in our world right now, where seniors were subject to health issues during the global pandemic, there's been a rise in the support of senior care services. All right. Now, those have changed. It doesn't mean that you can actually go into senior homes, but in many cases you can. You can still support seniors. So, senior in-home care, maybe cooking, cleaning, grocery shopping, and in some cases, companionship all plays a part in the senior care. I mean, the pandemic has definitely put a little bit of a damper on things like senior centers, where you have to limit the number of people that can go in. But senior care, where people want to stay in their homes, those have gone up, because seniors don't want to be prisoners in a senior home. They're willing to stay in their own home and have somebody come in and take care of them. So that's one example. There are many examples in the senior industry. Repairs, residential repairs and home modification. There's been a tremendous boom in 2020 in residential in-home services. In fact, there's a shortage of businesses that can actually come in and do kitchen remodels, bathroom remodels, floor updates, carpet installation, hardwood floor installation, roofing repairs, outside repairs. Because people work out of their homes now, they don't want to sit in there and see this remodeled kitchen or kitchen that needs remodeling every day. They're going to actually make sure it happens, and they can be there to make sure the job gets done, where they couldn't do that before if they were working. It was always put off. Well, in 2020, that all changed, and that industry went crazy. Cleaning services, same way. Cleaning services went nuts because what cleaning services did is they started offering COVID disinfection as part of their offerings, went through the roof. Then there's essential services like hair care and beauty. Yes, hair care and beauty salons actually suffered a little bit in the spring of 2020 because they had to close their doors many times for 6 weeks. But that all changed once they opened in May of 2020. In many cases, that a lot of these places haven't been closed since. It depends on where you are in parts of the country. But one of the things that people decided they were not going to give up was haircuts or eyelash extensions or nails or anything of that nature, esthetician services, skin services. People decided that was not going to happen anymore. So those were not subject to closures like they were in the spring of 2020. So the hair care industry boomed. They had to get smart because they had to limit people coming in their doors, but they got really smart about how to do that. They started doing more services with fewer employees to be able to accommodate those things. So it's remarkable to see how some of these businesses changed. Fitness has become another essential service. Yes, some gyms had to close. Some gyms went bankrupt, but some gyms thrived because they got clever. They got creative. They started doing outdoor fitness training exclusively. Even in Colorado, where I'm from, where it's cold in the wintertime, there are businesses out there. There are fitness franchises that are out there. They've actually made their way outdoors. People are willing to go and do their fitness workouts. And yes, they'll go outside to do it, even in the middle of winter. Automotive repair. People aren't going to give that up. They got to get their cars fixed. Damage restoration. Again, if you have mold or fire issues in your home, you're going to get that fixed. Then there's businesses that help other small businesses, which nobody ever thinks of. But these are essential services to businesses that are up and operating. Business coaching, sales training, digital marketing, advertising, staffing, all of those things are important to businesses. They have to continue to do these things, and there are franchises out there that will continue to support other businesses. That's just an example of what we got going on in the franchise world. We are set to explode because people are like, okay, look, I can see there's a problem and franchises can offer a solution, and they have gotten creative in offering those solutions. Let's talk about the franchising fact. Franchisors want people who can use their systems, will focus on being an owner with business and management skills, with people management, communication skills, but they don't necessarily want you in there under the hood day to day. They're looking for somebody who can run a business, not be in the business every single day. The franchisor will train you on how to use their system, but you are not expected to run that thing every single day. You're expected to get the right people in place to run your business so you can have that ultimate freedom, so that you can go watch your children's play in the afternoon, so that you can leave early for a dentist appointment and not feel guilty about it. Those are things that a franchisor wants you to be able to do, to live that freedom lifestyle that many business owners are so accustomed to. Let's talk about business ownership options. There's 3 that I'm going to talk about. There's more, but we're only going to talk about the top 3. You can start a business from scratch. You can buy an existing business from someone else, or you can buy a franchise. There's things in here that I'm not mentioning, like multi-level marketing, direct marketing. A lot of people look at those as businesses, and while they are with minimal investment, I don't talk about them here because everybody knows somebody who does it. So we're just not going to discuss that in this particular area. So here's what happens when you start a business from scratch. You definitely have advantages and disadvantages of each of these. In the advantage of starting a business from scratch, you have total control. You get to set all the rules. You don't have to follow anybody's process. You get to set that all up. Okay? You get room for creativity. You get to make all the decisions. There's no predetermined rules. There's the largest upside, and you get to build a business from your passion. I want you to think about Apple, Amazon, Starbucks. All of those were businesses that started from scratch. They had all of these working in their advantage. All right? But those are big companies. They got off the ground. Most smaller businesses that start from scratch don't become the Amazons, don't become the eBays, they don't become the Starbucks, the Apples. They don't get there because of the disadvantages. Let's talk about that. You have to be disciplined to create all of your own systems. I mean, let's think about that for a moment. Steve Jobs was an anomaly. Jeff Bezos is an anomaly. These people are very disciplined people who know how to find the right people to put in place to create the systems. That's why they did what they did. They were willing to start from their garage and spend countless hours putting together the systems required to run that business while they weren't there. But they had to do that. They had to do all of that from scratch. So all of the advantages over here can actually lead into the disadvantages. There's limited financial options. There's a reason Jeff Bezos started Amazon in his garage. He didn't have money to go out and find someplace, a large warehouse like he has now. He had to start it from his garage. He had an idea. He started from his garage, and he started it on a shoestring because nobody's going to lend to him. At the time, it was like books online that you ship to people's homes. Why would anybody do that? The banks would not fund him. Okay, they just wouldn't. It's got the slowest ramp up because you don't know what's going to work and what's not, and you have to experiment. You have to throw things against the wall and see what's going to stick. And from somebody who's actually done a startup on her own, it took me 4 years to see a $600 profit in year 5. I was like, woohoo, we celebrated. Everything else went out in expenses. And it took me 4 years to be able to see that return from my startup. It also has the highest failure rate for all of the reasons that I mentioned here. It's hard to do a startup. It takes discipline. It takes creativity. And it takes ways for you to get money that you would not have thought of. Like you have to get really creative to get the money together to expand or to scale and replicate. So that's starting a business from scratch. Absolutely, it's got the biggest upside if you can get past all of the challenges. The next one is buy an existing business. Now, I did a hybrid of that because I bought a franchise, but I also bought a franchise that was somebody else's business. I bought it from them. So I bought a resell. We call those resells. The advantages of buying a resell are hopefully there's cash flow. Hopefully it's cash flowing. We're going to talk about the 2 reasons why people sell their business in a moment. Hopefully it's got a good reputation in the community, that it's created a really strong reputation. You have actual financial results that you can look at. You can look at their tax return. You can look at their books. It's attractive to lenders because lenders can see that and go, oh, look what they've done. Here's money, or here's a portion of the money that you'll need to buy this business. It's got an established market. It's got a customer base. It's got employees. Systems may already be in place, put together by the previous owner, and the owner may do some financing. So the owner may say, look, you pay me $1,000 a month for 2 years, which is about a $25,000 investment, and I'll be here to answer any questions that you have. Now, disadvantages of owning a business. And this gets into the 2 reasons why people sell businesses themselves. Either their business is making money or it's not making money. That's the 2 reasons why people sell their business. So you have to remember that. If it's making money, it's cash flowing, they can sell their business for multiples of cash flow. So for instance, if it's cash flowing 100,000 and they want to sell it for 2 times cash flow, they can sell it for 200,000, or they can ask 200,000 and reasonably expect to get that if it's cash flowing and they can prove it. If it's not cash flowing, they don't get to set their price. They get to take whatever somebody is willing to offer. In my case, I bought an existing franchise that was not doing well. It was not cash flowing. They were 18 months in. What I saw was the ability to turn it around. So I was able to get it at a good discount and buy it from an owner and turn it around, but it wasn't cash flowing. And I had to accept that going in. I knew that going in. So you have to be willing to know what you're getting into when you're buying somebody else's business. It could be that it has a bad reputation. It doesn't have goodwill in the community. It has bad will. So there might be a bad reputation. It may be overpriced because if somebody's business is cash flowing and they decide they're going to sell it for 5 times cash flow instead of 2.5 times cash flow, you may have to negotiate to get that price where you feel comfortable. They may also decide not to take it as a seller. They might be able to sit on it because if it's making them money, they're not just going to drop everything and sell it to you just because you offer a price for it. You may get poor training and support as a result of buying somebody else's existing business, which is also a reason why you might want the owner to finance part of this. As a seller, you may require that they finance 25,000 of it and that you'll pay them $1,000 a month over the course of 2 years so that they're there to answer questions. Because if they just turn over the key to you and they're sitting on the shores of Mexico, if you have any questions and there's no financial incentive for them to answer, they may not answer the phone. So you can ensure you get some good training and support by having the owner finance part of this for you. There might be hidden seller motivations that you don't know about. Could be if they're selling a hardware store, they may not tell you that there's a Lowe's coming in down the street that they know about that you don't know about. You might get employees that leave, but you might get employees that stay. And it might be to an advantage to you to have employees that leave. But in many cases, when you're researching somebody else's business for sale, you're going to sign some sort of non-disclosure agreement. So you're not going to tell anyone just because you don't want it to get back to the employees or the customers, because you could have one or both of them leave before the sale is complete. So, and again, this could be an advantage or a disadvantage, because some owners come in to a business resale and they fire all the employees anyway and start from scratch. That does happen. There's no guarantees that employees are going to stay. You have a higher debt service, especially if you bought an expensive cash flowing business and the bank lends you the money. You're going to have a payment every single month, and it could be higher because you've bought a more expensive business. You just have to keep that in mind. It may totally offset what you're making in cash flow, could totally offset what you're paying in debt service, but those are the things that you're going to research when you go into this. Now, we also have advantages and disadvantages when you buy a franchise. Advantages are name recognition and a licensed trademark, which is true, but it's not always true, because if you're buying a McDonald's, of course, it's recognizable. If you're buying a cookie cutters haircuts for kids, like I did, it's not always recognizable. If you're starting in a new community where it doesn't exist and you're brand new to the market, it's not going to have that name recognition or licensed trademarks. Or, I mean, it'll have the licensed trademarks, but it's not going to have the name recognition. You're buying a proven business system. You've got training and support. Again, we talked about that. It's got a lower failure rate because of the predictability factor and the systems involved. It's not foolproof, because the owner is the main driver of any business, whether it's a startup, a resale, or a franchise. So what's going on in the owner's head is going to predict the success or failure rate. It doesn't necessarily have a lower cost. It could, in some cases, be a lower investment than a startup, because again, with a startup, you don't know all the money that's going into it. It tends to seep out. In a franchise, it's very set costs, and they're going to explain to you exactly what you're going to have to invest. So it could be a lower cost. It's got financing options. It's got full disclosure because of the franchise disclosure document. And a franchise is family friendly because it's got that connection. Other people are doing it. People love to be part of a group. A franchise has that. Disadvantages of a franchise is you've got fewer industry options. Look, franchises rule and run the world. And I tell people this all the time. It's the mundane. It's not the new, cool, sexy, cutting edge that you get in a startup business. What franchises offer are everyday, run-of-the-mill businesses that may have a cool backside that makes them really unique and a great business to run and appealing to some people. But if you think about a franchise, it's food, it's cleaning, it's the beauty industry, it's cutting hair, it's doing fitness. It's doing the everyday, run-of-the-mill, mundane things that keep our world running. Franchises run the world. So it's got fewer options in that. It's not going to be new. It's not going to be novel. It's not going to be unique. All right? So keep that in mind. It's got structured operating systems in some franchises. Some franchises let you basically run your ship, and it doesn't have that structured system. Food is very structured. Consulting franchise is not as structured. So you definitely have the gamut here. You've got territory restrictions, which means you're buying the rights to a territory. I had somebody come to me one day and say, I want to buy a Dunkin' Donuts and I want to put it in Denver on the corner of Broadway and Bellevue. Then that's what I want to do. Well, listen, somebody already bought the rights to Colorado and they chose not to put a Dunkin' Donuts on the corner of Bellevue and Broadway. They didn't do that. And so somebody can't just come in and say, I want this Dunkin' Donuts and I want it to put here. If somebody's already come in and bought the territory, you're just out of luck. You don't get to buy that territory. Somebody else already bought it. They're allowed to make all the decisions. So yes, territory restrictions come into play, which means I can't show all franchises to all people. It just doesn't work that way. It's not available in all markets. Some franchises are already sold out, or they might not do well. Listen, I live in Colorado, and the western half of Colorado is nothing but mountains. So it looks like it's a lot of territory, but you have to remember there are 14,000-foot peaks between some of these towns. So it limits the population in the mountain towns. So there are many franchises that simply will not do business on the western slope of Colorado because the demographics don't make sense and the drive time doesn't make sense. The commute time between towns doesn't make sense. So that's a territory restriction that's going to come into play. In a franchise, you can only sell their products and services. You don't get to come up with something new and start selling it at the front desk. It doesn't work that way. That violates the franchise agreement. So for some people, that's a deal breaker. And then you've got the ongoing royalty payments. You are paying for support, and you better show that you're paying for something, or the franchisor better show that you're getting value for the royalties that you pay. But even for some people, that's a deal breaker. That's another reason why they wouldn't necessarily go into franchising. But I educate people on why royalties would be important. So let's talk about why people own a franchise. A franchise can be a great fit because it can be a vehicle that can get you to your destination, which is retirement, while meeting your lifestyle and financial goals, which is income. So you can pay yourself while your franchise is running. Once it gets to cash flow, you're paying all your expenses, you can pay yourself, which is great. So there's income. Okay, a 401k doesn't do that. A 401k, you're just putting money in, hoping that it will grow so that you can take money out at retirement time. It doesn't give you income. So again, it's sort of like renting versus buying. It's a way to reduce your risk. You've got income security versus job security. Remember, we're looking for income security, not job security. And you can be transitioning from one career, which is the military, to the next phase of your life. A franchise can allow you to do that. So let's talk about specifically franchising for vets. There's over 2,500 veteran franchise owners since 2002, according to the International Franchise Association survey. That is our organization. We call it the IFA, franchise.org, if you want to look at their website. Why do franchisers want veteran owners? For all of the reasons that I mentioned before. Leadership, determination, ability to follow systems, and they can execute. That's really what veteran franchise owners are good at. They're good at executing a system. And VetFran, remember, many franchisers reduce their fees for veterans or offer other discounts. So that's super important to many vets. And when I'm working with a vet, I'm going to be looking at all of my franchises, but in particular, I'm going to be looking at veteran-friendly franchises so that they might be able to get a discount that they wouldn't otherwise get. This page shows some examples of some veterans who've been in franchising that I've put into franchises. Jake started a fitness franchise, started with one. He purchased additional territory, so now he owns 4. Mark is owns a small business IT service. He owns the south half of Colorado. Of course, I do a lot of work in Colorado because I live here. Larry is West Point grad. He owns a residential cleaning service. Anthony was a pilot in the Air Force. Anthony was an Army Guard in the Army Guard for 6 years. He owns a children's hair care salon like mine. He actually owns that in another part of the state. Eric also owns a retail IT solution, so he does device repair. And Thomas recently came out of the military. He actually wanted something that he could do in his spare time that would utilize his rental property experience. So he bought a property management franchise. So, and he did that in Wyoming. So that's very cool. And Wyoming, sometimes it's a challenge because of the population, but there are franchises that go into smaller population pockets, and property management happened to be a good fit for him. So let's talk about finding your perfect franchise. Remember, what we have to do is separate the function of the business from the function of the business owner, which means I'm going to show you franchises that you may think I'm crazy showing you because you don't know how to repair a car. You don't know about anything about automotive repair, but I might show you a Meineke because it fits a lot of your other criteria and you're going to hire employees to do the work. So we're going to find your perfect fit. Well, let me go back here. Nope, I thought there was more on that page. How we find your perfect fit in franchising. You have to ask yourself some questions. Am I willing to follow the franchisor systems. If you're not willing to follow somebody else's systems, then you should not be buying a franchise. Maybe you're more apt to start your own or buy another business from somebody else. Is it affordable? When I say affordable, does it fit your financials? Now, there's a difference. Is it something you want to be able to afford? Is it something you can be able to afford? Because those are two different numbers. You may have a multi-million-dollar net worth, but maybe you don't want to spend every penny that you have available to buy a franchise. Maybe you want to start with a lower end and buy multiples so that you can scale it and open more later on. Start out with a lower investment now to build to something bigger later on. So there's ways to do that. But remember, what you can afford and what you're willing to afford are two different things. And we talk about that when we go through my process. Is the risk level acceptable? Do you have the stomach for this? Are you more cut out to buy an emerging brand that maybe only has 3 franchise units open? Or are you going to have to look for something that already has 1,500 operating units to make you feel comfortable in what you're looking at? And will I enjoy my business? Am I going to like this? Now, your business may just be selling widgets, but if you can enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, then that's worth its weight in gold. So you want to be able to enjoy this as well. Okay, why is it important to you? You have to ask yourself the questions. You got to find your why. You got to ask yourself, what are my compelling reasons for doing this? Some people want challenge, recognition, prestige. Some people want to build equity for retirement. Some people want time for family and interests. Some people want independence and control. And some people want financial security. It's all about the money. They want to build wealth. So ask yourself what your compelling reasons are about why you'd want to start a business. Because again, we're trying to find that perfect match. We want to find the thing that's going to fit you personally, and your compelling reasons are an important part of that. What do you want in a business? What are your business preferences? How many employees? Do you want employees at all? What's your budget? What does your business environment look like? Is it full or part-time? How many locations do you want to get to? Do you want to only do one, or do you want to scale it and maybe have 12? What types of customers are you looking for? Is it a product or a service, new or established? Room for growth? Can you scale it? What are some of your other preferences? And we ask all of this when we start down this path. You want to also ask yourself, where do I excel? Am I good at sales and marketing, customer service, operations management, financial management? Very rarely is someone good at all 4 of these things. They may have strengths in many of them, but they generally excel at one thing, and then they're able to hire employees to fill some of these other roles. Ask yourself what your big plan is, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. Identify what your targets are for each one of those. This is something that people rarely do. But I ask people to think about it, but it's their job to really put that into play. What does it look like 5 years from now? My 5-year plan is to have 3 cookie cutters locations operating. 10 years from now, I may want to transition completely out. I may want to be able to sell them and maybe buy something different down the road. I don't envision me ever sitting around and not owning a business. That's not what I have in mind for my life. But you never know what 20 years brings. Is that going to bring a different set of circumstances to the plate? Maybe health issues or situational issues. Maybe it's time to truly retire. What is it going to look like, and what are the scenarios surrounding each one of these targets? I want to tell you about some books that I want you all to read that it's going to really make you start thinking about things. The E-Myth Revisited, I think that's just an excellent book. I really feel strongly about this one. I read it. It's more on a storyteller level. So it's going to tell you about why people start their businesses and why they chose to systematize them, even if it's not a franchise. So, any business owner should figure out how to systematize their business. Profit First is one of my favorite books. This is how I do my bookkeeping. This is how I grow my wealth and make sure that I have profit coming into my account from day one. I send this to all my clients because everybody needs to structure their financials so that they think about themselves first and everything else falls into place. And then Street Smart Franchising, you probably can only get this on Amazon. You can't go buy it in a bookstore. It's just not something that you can buy. But seriously, who buys books from a bookstore anymore anyway? Everybody's going to go to Amazon for all of these. But Street Smart Franchising is an excellent read as well. Everybody should consider professional advisors when they're looking at a franchise, maybe a franchise attorney, an accountant, a commercial real estate agent, a commercial insurance agent, a bookkeeper. One of the things that I bring to the table, I can actually help people in these areas as well. I have a list of people that I refer people to. So, and we can do things remotely now, so that person doesn't necessarily have to be in your neighborhood in order to do that. They can actually do it from a different location across the country. That is unique in 2020. Okay, so these are some of the resources that people need to think about. So I'm going to leave this here. Again, we don't have a way to answer any questions, but if you have questions, you can absolutely reach out to me. Be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's going to tell you all about who I am, what I do. If you're interested in taking my profile to see what kind of business is going to fit you, it doesn't cost anything. You just have to go to www.cindysprofile.com, start filling that out. You can find me at franchisematchmakers.com. You can email me. This is a great page for you to be able to reach out to me at any time. I work pretty much 7 days a week. Again, I have complete and total freedom. So I'm able to work anytime that I want. I'm able to do answer questions. Sometimes I may get back to you on a weekend. Sometimes it may be in the evenings, but I'm absolutely here to answer your questions. So I want to thank you all for participating with me. If you would like a copy of this program, you can text franchise to 720-358-7290, and you'll get an email with this particular presentation sent to your inbox. Okay? Thank you all very much for your time. Have a wonderful day.